Hello and welcome to my Melty Blood video, how to learn Melty Blood or how to play Melty Blood. This video is aimed at newer players who might not be comfortable with fighting games. Now, it doesn't matter if you want to use an arcade stick or a gamepad or a keyboard, all of those are great options for this game since the control system is very simple. Now, what Melty Blood is, as you can clearly see in the bottom right corner, an old game, 1999, but it's still played today, and it's coming to Steam fresh and new. This is a great time to jump in and learn how to play it. Let's jump in, and I'm going to kind of ease you through how to play Melty Blood, sort of showing you how you should look at learning to play Melty Blood. If you already are comfortable with fighting games, I suggest you just look up some combos and go at it. But I know a lot of Steam players don't play fighting games, and this amazing anime style that Melty Blood presents is very attractive. This is a great game to learn with, and I believe it's possibly the best anime game because it's very fair, it's very simple. It still has a lot of depth and mechanics that help tricking your opponent or outthinking your opponent, but the core elements are very simple. There's not a lot going on. If you look at the Melty Blood HUD and compare it to the Blaze Blue HUD, for example, you might go insane. But Melty Blood is nice and simple. Like I said, the controls are simple, the combo system is simple, and I'm going to show you those with my main girl, White Lan. Now, 31 character cast. I happen to play White Lan. 31 characters is very daunting, and when you pick a character, you see this moon style, this style select. These are very similar to grooves, which as a new player you won't recognize them, but trust me that other games have them, and in Melty Blood especially, grooves dramatically change how the characters work. In fact, the grooves change the system mechanics, but don't worry about that if you're starting out. Just keep in mind that full moon is generally the easiest, crescent moon is generally the hardest, and half moon is usually somewhere in between. So you might want to start out with full moon and then look into more difficult half moon styles as you progress and learn how to play fighting games. My personal favorite character right now is Full Moon White Lan, although I do play a fair amount of Half Moon. However, she has a lot of tricky stuff, which I'll cover later. So I'm just going to jump into Full Moon and show you a little bit about how you should look at learning to play the fighting games. And as a character I recommend to new players is Aoko, and we're going to cover Aoko at the end of the video. Well, Full Moon Aoko. So very simply, in a fighting game you need to get comfortable with moving your character around. Oftentimes, you're going to want to do this in training mode or arcade, and if you're in training mode, you need to know how to set up training mode. So, in Melty Blood, the most important things are the input display. These show the input display, which shows what buttons you're pressing, and this will help you find where you're struggling, where you're having difficulty. This version I'm using, this isn't the Steam version. This is the older translation version, which is much harder to find, much more difficult to get a hold of, and as you can see, my computer is struggling to render the Japanese characters because it's not fully translated. The Arc System Works version, that's being released on Steam in a couple of days, will come properly translated, and it will run perfectly fine. So don't worry about my garbled information screen, just worry about the sprites and the gameplay, and when you purchase your Steam version, you won't have any of these issues. Input display shows you what you're inputting. This is very important in looking for what you're inputting incorrectly. Attack display is what you use when you start evaluating your combos to try and figure out how you want to get the most damage out of things and what you want to optimize. Starting out, don't worry too much about attack display, and after you've learned the basics, then you can start looking at optimizing your damage and doing higher damage combos. For now, I'm going to keep that off as it kind of clutters the screen, and as you're learning, it's very important to have your characters well represented visually. You don't want too many things on the screen distracting you. However, the input display is so important that you need it. Other settings which are very important are the combo blocking. Normally, you want combo guard on so that if you do make a mistake, it's very obvious. However, I personally find that Melty Blood's combo guard usually lasts too long. After you stop comboing them, they like to block for a long time, which can make practicing again difficult. So I usually leave it off in Melty Blood, and instead, I check the combo counter to see when I'm comboing. However, the combo counter only really works once you're sure what all your attacks do. For example, that just showed me I have 2 hits, but I'm not comboing between the A and the B swing. The B swing merely has 2 hits. So just keep in mind these small differences as you're learning how to train and learning how to things work out. At the ground level though, first you want to be thinking about movement. You don't even want to think about buttons. You want to get used to just walking around, jumping around, figuring out how you need to move your gamepad or your keyboard to make your character move the way you want. Like in most fighting games, pretty much everything except Mortal Kombat, you have to walk away from your opponent to block. And you have to hold down and down back to block low attacks. For example, White Lens foot, it comes out quickly, it hits very low. If you're just holding back and standing up straight, you'll get hit. And if you get hit, the person will combo you, and you'll take a bunch of damage and die. So, get used to walking around, get used to holding back and down back to block. Hold back when they're hold back when they are in the air, and hold down back when they're on the ground. Certain attacks you have to block, holding up and back, well not up and back, you have to block while walking backwards, those are called overheads, but you'll kind of get to know those as you play the game. Early on, don't worry about them too much, just focus on down back to block ground attacks, and back to block jumping attacks. Once you get used to just moving your character around, then you start looking at more advanced things. The double jump, jumping twice in the air. Just pressing up and forward to move. It's a little different than normal games where say you just move with your stick and press A to jump. Instead, you have to get used to telling your character to jump by pressing up. On top of that, we also have another form of movement, the dash. Most characters have short little runs. White Len, however, as a special character, she's got this after image, fake out, tricky, weird dash. You can also dash in the air. White Len's got a fairly normal dash. It's a little bit slower than most because she's a more defensive character. She's more about keeping the people away from them, so she has long-range attacks, and her dashes aren't very good. There's also a technique called the instant air dash, but as an early on person learning the game, you don't really need to worry too much about that. That's more of an advanced thing, which you can, as you get better, work that into your gameplay with practice and figuring out how to do it. Ugh. So, you can jump twice and then dash. Some characters have different amounts, but for the most part, it's pretty simple like that. Very, very normal for an anime game. So just get used to moving around and dashing and figuring out how to move your character, and then when you're ready, you can move on to the buttons. Now, the buttons are great. They've got a great way that they're implemented, and they just work out nicely. You've got light, medium, and heavy, also known as ABC. Now, these 3 buttons, they also have crouching variants, and some characters have command normals, or pressing a direction and a button. In Whiteland's case, she has holding backwards and pressing B. So my normal B, I shoot my orb out very far in front of me, but I also have a special little uppercut B, which will kind of knock them into the air a little bit. This can be used in some combos to knock them up. In addition to that, she also has a repeated button with down C, where she presses down C twice, and then she does her little front flip, and this is used to knock people in the air. Now, the main thing about the buttons is you can press a harder button to chain through them. So I can press A, B, C, and I do a simple combo. And I can press it very quickly, and I can mash it. I can do a lot of things to kind of combo, and it will work out. So this is the basics of the Gatling system. You do a light attack, a medium attack, another medium attack that's a different medium attack, and then you can do a heavy attack. So the main bread and butter Gatling that almost the entire cast has, and almost the entire cast relies on, is 2A, 5B, 2B, 2C, and then a launcher button. In Full Moon White Lens case, she has to press the sweep button twice to launch them. After the launch, you jump into the air, you hit BC, jump again, hit BC, and then throw them. So it looks something like this. And that's the normal combo for almost the entire cast. They will launch them in different ways. White Lens, little moon flip, you have to delay it a little bit based on counter hits and juggle states, so she's a little bit more complex than most characters, but she has the very simple combo that almost everybody has, almost everybody uses it. It's a very good combo, and learning this really opens up almost the entire cast for you. So with that, in addition to chaining up attacks, some characters can chain down attacks. Full Moon White Lens can't, but I'll show you a bit more about that later. Just know that you can pretty much mash buttons out going from lighter to heavy, and that's the main thing. You also have a fourth button, D button. This is a little shield, it's a little parry. You can see it uses meter. You can also use an E button, which is handy with keyboards and controllers. This is just a macro which presses A, B, and C at the same time for you, and that will do different things based on what your groove is, what your moon style is. With Full Moon, it charges you up all Super Saiyan-like. So you can use your D to kind of block attacks. It's more risky because it can be punished, because she has to put her hands down at her side, but it blocks attacks and it gives you a lot of advantage. So you can stop their punch and then attack them almost immediately. In addition to that, if you press A and D at the same time, which you probably want to bind as a macro on your gamepad or a keyboard, you can throw characters. It's just like Street Fighter. If you're close to people, you can press the two buttons to throw them. If you hold the direction when you throw them, you'll throw them in a direction, and you can throw them in the air if they are jumping. You can also throw them in combos, as I showed you earlier, and that's the main form of enders, because they're on the ground, you have time to sort of get ready and set up something to attack them when they're standing up. Some people think it's dishonorable. It's the mainstay of fighting games. Besides all your normal buttons, the whole cast has one moveset for all their specials, by which I mean every character has a fireball motion move, a 2-3-6 if you will. That means you hold down, press down forward, press forward, and then a button, and you'll get a move. In White Lens case, it's a fireball, just like Ryu, just like Ken, fighting game staple. White Lens can also do it in the air, which is fair considering there's a lot of options in the air. People can jump up, they can dash, you can do tons of crazy stuff. Her B fireball on the ground goes faster than her A fireball. In the air, her B fireball takes a little bit longer to come out, and it knocks her backwards. She can use her A fireball to move forward in the air and kind of protect her approach, but the B fireball will fake out people and send her backwards As you can see, White Len's kind of a tricky character who keeps people away, and you might not be able to do down, down, forward, forward, fireball fast enough, and this is where the input history comes in handy. It'll show you if you're like messing things up, what buttons you pressed, and while the fireball motion itself is somewhat simple, once you get it down, you won't really need the input history. The uppercut motion is a little more difficult. You press forward, down, and then down, forward. So it's like doing half of a fireball after you press forward. In White Len's case, in Full Moon White Len's case, she does a little spin and a kick. With B, she does a farther jump. And this is where you will come to understand what's happening with your uppercut. Say you're like slurring the down input, because the down input in an uppercut has to be very clean. Normally you press forward, go to neutral, then down, and then down forward. On a D-pad, you might do that somewhat easily. However, you need to make sure that you're not rolling your thumb across down forward, in which case you'll see in the input history that what you're doing is incorrect. There's actually a lot of uppercut protection keeping the inputs very simple. As you can see, I can do a lot of weird things and still get uppercuts, as long as the game thinks I intended to do an uppercut. So, it's very simple to play Melty Blood, but the act of fighting another person is very complex. In addition to the fireball and the uppercut motion, which you might have to practice, and if you do, that's okay. Everybody has to practice it at the start. But after you've done that, your other moves are a backwards fireball. In Full Moon White Len's case, she puts an ice trap out, which the opponent can hit and then take damage. And her backwards uppercut, she doesn't actually have one, because some Full Moon characters are so simple, they don't have backwards uppercut inputs, which are considered somewhat difficult. However, I'll show you in a moment that Half Moon White Len has a backwards uppercut, and a lot of characters have backwards uppercut moves. So, you still need to learn how to uppercut on both sides of the screen. In addition to that, many characters have useful down-down moves, which you press down-down and then a button. White Len's case, they're very tricky moves. They're used for faking the opponent out. She can pretend to uppercut them, even though her uppercut's a little weird, but she can fake them out. She can teleport forwards with the A button, and with the C button, she can fake them out and teleport forwards. It's a very tricky and useful tool to move around the screen. However, if you do it too much, your opponents will catch on and they'll just attack you. And that's when you trick them with your kick. White Len also has a special move with down-down D button, which turns her into a cat, which is more of a joke. You don't ever use this. Most characters don't get moves like this, but White Len's special because she's awesome. So with that, you have a lot of different moves, and even if you're having trouble pressing the special buttons, there's a lot of redundant normals. There's a lot of moves that can serve the same purpose. If somebody jumps at me, instead of having to do a weird Ryu uppercut, White Len can press 5B, where she gets a little orb around her head. It covers a lot of area here, protecting from a character jumping at her. She has a jump up air throw, just like everybody in the game. She has her backwards B, which has a good hitbox above her head and in front of her. It comes out fairly quickly too. However, there's some delay in it, and she moves forward, which could put her in danger. So the 5C is generally safer. Additionally, she has a 5B, which if somebody jumps at her from far away, you can catch them with the 5B because it goes out so far. Aside from that, you also have your jump normals, so just press the buttons in the air. And as you might have noticed, some buttons can be held down, which give them different properties. Her 5B comes out very quickly, and if she holds it, she has to wait a minute, it makes a sound, and it knocks them flying against the wall. You can get a lot of space from this move if you charge it, and similarly, her 5C can be charged, however most times you just want it to come in the air, her 5B can be charged because if you just jump and press it immediately, you'll notice it doesn't hit them. But if you charge her 5B, the orb stays out until she hits the ground. It comes out slower, but it stays longer. With her jumping moves, if she holds her jump C, it turns into an orb and she can throw it at people. It's a very handy move. In maneuvering around, it provides a lot of defense. They're going to have to kind of respect that you have this other projectile, which is very easy to come out. You don't need to rely on Hadoken inputs if you are uncomfortable with the quarter circle forward. You can jump up and hold C. It doesn't protect in front of you the same way, but it does protect the air in front of you in a way the fireball doesn't. Even the jumping fireball doesn't cover this aerial space the way her jumping C does. In addition, she has a jumping down C, where her jumping C is a great move to attack people if they jump at you. You can jump up and press C, and you get this nice hitbox ahead of you. If you're jumping at somebody, you want to press down and C so you can attack them with this huge pink orb. With that in mind, the simple combo of 2A, 5B, 2B, 2C launcher, BC, BC, that's the bread and butter. That's mostly what you're going to try and do. You use the 2A, even though you don't have to. You might punish with 5B, 2B, or even 2B into sweep, but you need to be somewhat close for that to combo. With 2A, you can possibly trick them out because 2A needs to be blocked low. She's got her little foot out there. She's gotta block that low. So you can see how there's some timing difficulties with White Len's combo system. She's not the most simple character, but even then she's not too complex that you can't learn how to play her. She's got a couple different combo routes with, as you can see, she can do 5B, 2B, 4B and still combo them with, again, the same air combo that we've seen before with jump B, jump C, jump B, jump C. It's very rhythmic. She has variations because she's a slightly different character compared to the other cast, but if you keep the jump B, jump C, etc. combo, almost everybody in the game has that, and it's very simple to apply that to the other characters. And you'll get it in time. It shouldn't take you too long, especially if you've played fighting games before. But if you're new to fighting games, don't worry about it. You'll get it eventually. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It's much easier than other games, and you don't have to worry too much. As you can see in the input string, you can, if you're having trouble, you can just mash it out a little bit. With most characters, you can mash a lot. With White Len, you have to work a little harder. However, I'm going to show you with Half Moon, you have to work even harder than I was doing just now. And it's very common to spend a lot of time in training mode, practicing and perfecting these inputs. I know a lot of successful, quote-unquote, professional players, they spend thousands of hours in training mode, just practicing even the simple things, even the fireballs. As I mentioned before, the simple fireball motion is now a lot different because I'm in Half Moon. This White Len is entirely different than the other White Len. She looks the same. She has the same sort of buttons. As you can see, the 5C is very similar, but it's different just slightly. And that goes with her special moves. She's got a backwards Hadoken, which is different. Instead of the trap, she's got a nice little anti-air attack. As I said about redundancy, if somebody jumps at me, I can press 5C, or I can do a little backflip kick. In addition, I've got a backwards uppercut now. It's another tricky move where she can teleport to stay in the same spot, she can teleport forwards, or she can teleport above her current position to get tricky jumping mix-ups, combos, and stuff. In addition, addition to her special moves being entirely different, except for the cat button, she still has a lot of her stuff. Although, as you've noticed, her 2-2B now does a different trick. Instead of the uppercut trick where she twirls at them, she does a fake backflip, which can be pretty devastating. In addition, her uppercut has changed. Instead of just swirling and kicking them, she can kick their feet, knocking them down. She can do an attack that they have to block high and overhead, and she can fake it if she holds the button down. Furthermore, her dashes have changed. Instead of after images, she now has a very quick run like the rest of the cast, with the advantage of being quite quickly so she can get at the players easier. She's less tricky, but she makes up for it by having slightly better movement. She still has a lot of tricks with her other moves, and her fireballs to protect her, in addition to a fireball protecting her jump in. Remember redundancy? You've got backflip, fireball, over just orange or pink ball thing swirling around. You still have your backwards B. You've got so many different buttons you can press. So if one of them doesn't work for you, feel free to get comfortable with something else that does. You don't need to work very hard to battle the controls. You're going to spend more time battling your opponent. The combo system, it's got similarities, especially since it's a similar character. In addition to all these other changes, her crouching is entirely different. She has entirely different crouching moves, and I'm going to show you how that affects her combo. She still has the 5B, 2B, and she still has the sweep, but after the sweep, she's got to pick them up into the combo. You might have seen my jump BC. BC is still the same, but picking up off the combo, I have to jab them after the sweep. I jab them, and then I hit them with a 5C, and that knocks them up because they are already airborne. It's closer to a traditional character in the sense that after the sweep, you press a button, and that knocks them in the air. However, it's a little different because you have to time that jab a little tighter. For many characters, you can kind of mash out the sweep. And in addition, Half Moon White Len has a weird combo. Remember how Full Moon White Len 2C, 2C did something special? Instead, Half Moon White Len gets 6A, which does this funky little overhead combo. And you can actually catch that with a sweep. And you can combo it normally. It's a much more difficult combo than everything else I've showed you because you have to time that pickup. As you can see, I kind of have to bounce the other character off White Len's back, and then I have to press 5B and then 4B, and I can actually end up on different sides depending on how late I catch them on my back or how early I catch them on my back. So I have to kind of react to which side I end up on, which makes this combo a lot more difficult than just mashing out a simple a simple launcher into an air throw combo. It's very rewarding though, and as I mentioned before with the Gatling system, sometimes a heavy button can be cancelled into a lighter button. So in Half Moon White Len's case, I can cancel a 5C into a jab, which lets me get the jab combo off a 5C, which isn't that useful, but what I can do is do 2A, 5C, and then cancel the 5C into a jab combo, giving me a nice little combo mix-up that I can do out of 2A instead of this sort of standard 2A, BC, pick up combo. Instead I can do 2A into 5C and do the weird juggle, more difficult combo, which does different damage, and it's just something that I can play with and do. In addition to charging normal buttons, White Len's able to charge some moves most characters can. For example, I can charge my fireball, and instead of being an instant attack, It creates a delayed explosion in the ice. It's useful for being tricky, setting up characters, catching them sleeping, and you can actually combo off them if you manage to trick them. All in all, this is my favorite character. She's very slow-paced, she likes to control the space around her, she really highlights why Melty Blood is so fair. There's a lot of emphasis on how people move around you and how you stop them from attacking you. There's a lot of footsies in the game where you have to keep them at a distance, or you have to respect their attacks. For example, her little 2A doesn't reach out very far, but her 2B does, and you can use that to control a lot of space, doing crazy things like 2B into Fireball, or 2B into Sweep if you're closer, and of course 2B into Sweep lets you pick them up. Overall, there's just a lot of cool things going on in Melty Blood. So don't be afraid if you have to practice some things. As you see, I'm not even perfect with the 6A combo because the pickup is a lot more difficult than some of the other things I've looked at. Mostly I play full moon Waitland because even I'm not that good. If I want to get better, I have to put in the time and actually learn how to play and practice how to play even more. However, I don't recommend that you start with Waitland. She's got a lot of more advanced things. I would suggest you go to Ayoko. Ayoko is a great character, and she's a lot of fun. She's got a great style, and she really applies what I've been telling you guys about the simplicity of Melty Blood. She's got a very simple combo. It's more in line with what the rest of the cast does. She's got a lot of redundant moves, which is great for new players. She doesn't have too many buttons which really protect the air above her. Her kick is pretty good if they're coming right about here. This kick is pretty good. Her crouching buttons don't really protect above her. Her jump attacks are a little limited. Her jumping C is very quick, and it covers this area below her very nicely. Even coming out sideways very fast too, so you can use it if they jump at you to hit them out of the air. Above her is a little bit more of a problem, but for her moves, she's got a Fireball, which is very good for controlling just the area in front of you, keeping people from walking at you. She's got a little Mind Trap, which can even be held down to move forward and attack people, or just set up traps. She can do them in the air. She can't do her Fireball in the air, but she can do traps, which is pretty useful. Her forward uppercut is a pretty good kick. It covers the air above her. This is one of the better moves to learn how to protect yourself if people jump at you, with the B version kicking higher and jumping higher. However, if that's too difficult, if you don't have jumping, or if you don't have uppercuts down, her down attack buttons are very good at covering the space in front of her and above her. It doesn't work too well if they're right above your head, but as you can see, with a simple input of crouch, crouch, and then a button, you get a nice hitbox which covers a person who would be jumping towards you. The B version hits a bigger attack, but it's tilted forward a bit more, so it's less good for protecting yourself from a high jump in, but if they're doing a fast air dash at you, you might catch them. In addition to that, in addition to her backwards Fireball, her backwards uppercut is another attack that protects in front of her, with her B button protecting much farther away from her, which would stop somebody if they jumped a little bit late. For example, they might jump at you thinking you're going to put a trap in front of you. They might jump at you thinking you're trying to push a trap towards them to kind of box them in, but instead you're doing a backwards uppercut, which is going to catch them in the start of their jump. So like I said, she's got uppercuts, which protect her if she's being jumped at. She's got this down down button, which protects her from being jumped at, and she's got a backwards uppercut, which protects her if she's being jumped at. Lots of redundancy. Lots of slightly different redundancy, but lots of redundancy. Her combo, very similar to what you've seen before. She's got a crouching A button, a standing B button, a crouching B button, a sweep, which is the crouching heavy button, but after her sweep, she's got a launcher, which in this case is her down forward C. So her combo is very similar to what we've seen before. After the launcher, you have to be ready to jump, and you're going to do the same BC, BC juggle that I've showed you a million times before. And then, of course, throw them after BC, BC. It's very standard. Pretty much the whole cast has it. And in some cases, for example, my 5B has got great range. My crouching B doesn't have nearly as well range as my standing kick. So I can actually skip that in the Gatling if I think that it might not work out. Which results in a different combo, but it's still very similar. You'll understand this as you play more, and you'll figure out when exactly you can hit your crouching punch in the combo and when you can't. As you can see, she's doing great damage with even the simple combo. As you learn how to do the moves, you can play your friends and you can play other enemies, and you'll be doing decent damage. Most people do around 4,000 damage, and even with just this simple combo, she's breaking 4,000. It's an excellent character. It is an excellent game. I hope you give Melty Blood a chance. Thank you. I'm gonna practice myself.